She was 10 centimeters dilated, gripping a hospital bed rail so hard her knuckles had gone white, screaming through the hardest moment of her life.
You always
And
know
her
how to make
husband
me
was
laugh.
20 minutes away, in a hotel room,
I miss
taking
you too.
selfies, while Jessica Calloway was tearing herself apart to bring his daughter into the world. Liam was in a 5-star suite with another woman, and that woman had just posted their photo on Instagram. Geotag and all. Time-stamped. Public. While the labor and delivery monitor was still beeping in room 3B, Jessica did not find out from a private investigator. She did not find out from a suspicious text or a late-night confession. She found out from her sister, who was sitting in the visitor's chair, scrolling through her phone between contractions, and stopped scrolling. And what Jessica did next, 30 seconds after holding her newborn daughter for the very first time, is the reason we are telling you this story today. Because this is not just a story about a man who cheated. This is a story about what a woman discovers she is capable of when everything she built is burned to the ground on the worst night of her life. Stay with us. Lesson statement, 1 sentence. The most dangerous betrayals are not the ones that break you in public. They are the ones that find you at your most open, your most trusting, your most beautifully vulnerable, and what you do in that moment will define not the end of your story, but the beginning of the real one. Meaning and value. Why this story matters. This story is for every woman who has ever explained away a feeling she should have listened to. For every person who has sat in a parking lot or a hospital corridor or a kitchen floor and wondered, how did I not see this coming? The answer almost always is that you did see it. You felt it in the change of a laugh, in a name mentioned 1 beat too casually, in a keyboard rhythm that did not sound like work. You saw it, and you loved someone enough to look away. Jessica's story does not ask you to stop loving people. It asks you to stop abandoning yourself in the process. It asks you to build your 8-tab spreadsheet, to know the name of a good attorney before you need one, to understand that the floor of your kitchen at 3 in the morning is not the final destination. It is just the place where some people stop and others decide to get up. The women who get up are not stronger than you. They just had one person who showed up at 3 in the morning with coffee and a business card and a fire pit they had absolutely no idea how to assemble. Be that person for someone, and find the one who will be that for you. If you made it to the end of this story, you already know it was not just entertainment. Something in it reached you. Maybe it was the hospital room. Maybe it was the kitchen floor. Maybe it was the leaf in the October light, or the laugh that surprised her, or the simple quiet fact of a woman deciding to keep her own name because she had earned it. Whatever it was, that feeling is worth something. If this story gave you something, a moment of recognition, a breath of relief, a quiet reminder that survival is possible and starting over is not the same as losing, please give it a like. It costs you nothing, and it tells us to keep going. Leave a comment and tell us, who is your Sarah? Who shows up at 3 in the morning? We read every single one, and some of your answers are going to mean more to the next person who reads them than anything we could write. Share this with the woman in your life who needs to hear that the floor is not the end. You probably already know who she is. And if you want more stories about the extraordinary things ordinary people do when everything falls apart and they choose, quietly and without applause, to build something better, subscribe to this channel. We will be here. Every story we tell is for someone who needed to hear it today.
There is a specific kind of silence that only exists in hospitals at night. Not peaceful, not restful. The silence of held breath, of machines keeping watch, of people waiting for news that will divide their lives into before and after. Jessica Calloway knew that silence intimately now. She had been sitting in it for 4 hours, alone in a wheelchair at the end of a fluorescent corridor, both hands wrapped around the curve of her belly, watching the elevator doors close on her husband's back. He had not turned around. She had not called after him. She looked forward, straight ahead, straight into the middle distance where the future lived. Unwritten and terrifying, and somehow, in this moment, clearer than it had been in months. If you have ever watched someone you love walk away from you and felt, in your bones, that something has permanently shifted, then you already understand what Jessica was feeling. Not panic, not rage. Something colder and more precise than either of those things. The particular calm of a woman whose instincts have been telling her the truth for 11 months, and who has finally, irrevocably, stopped arguing with them. She would tell you later that the moment she stopped believing him was not in that hospital corridor. It was not the night everything fell apart. It was not even close to the end. It was 11 months earlier. A Tuesday evening in their kitchen. Liam had been on the phone with someone and he had laughed. Not his public laugh. The generous, warm laugh he deployed at dinner parties and work events. His private laugh. The one that lived in the quiet between two people who know each other completely. The one she had believed, until that Tuesday, belonged entirely to her. She had been standing in the doorway with a glass of water, and she heard that laugh come out of him for someone else. And she thought, that laugh does not live here anymore. She should have listened to that thought. She wants you to listen to yours. But this is not a story that begins at its ending. It begins 11 months before that hospital corridor in a craftsman house on a quiet street in Connecticut, where the maple trees turned spectacular every October, and a woman named Jessica Calloway was building, with extraordinary care, the life she had always wanted. The house was her masterpiece. 3 years of intention lived in every room. The kitchen had open shelving lined with mismatched vintage dishes that looked accidental, but were the result of 18 months of deliberate thrift store excavation. The living room had a fireplace she had tiled herself on a long weekend. The hallway had photographs she had printed and framed, a timeline of a life that looked from the outside exactly like what it was supposed to be. And the nursery. The nursery was sage green, the soft green of morning light through leaves, not aggressive or ambitious, just quietly hopeful. She had painted it herself over 2 weekends, lying on her back on a folded quilt, neck aching, completely happy. Above the white crib, a hand-painted mural, woodland creatures in gentle watercolor, a fox reading a book, a rabbit in a rocking chair, an owl in tiny spectacles. She would stand in the doorway sometimes, one hand on her belly, and simply look at what she had made. This is a room full of promises, she would think. She had no idea yet which ones would be kept. Liam Calloway came out of his home office one Friday evening, smelling of cedar cologne and the particular electric charge of someone who has been deeply focused on something other than what he claims. He was handsome in the effortless way that required almost no maintenance, dark hair that fell correctly without trying, a jawline that photographers loved, an easy smile that arrived half a second before his eyes caught up. Charming until you started paying close attention. He leaned against the nursery doorframe and looked at her, looking at the mural. I think she is going to love the fox, he said. We already know she has good taste, Jessica said. She chose us. He crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands resting over hers on the curve of her belly, and for a moment the house felt like what it looked like. Whole, true, enough. This was the thing about Liam that made everything that came later so precisely cruel. He was genuinely good at making people feel chosen. It was not entirely performance. It was a talent. The talent of making whoever was in the room with him feel like the only person who existed. The problem, which Jessica did not yet fully understand, was that this talent had no loyalty to any one person. It simply ran. It worked on everyone, including people who were not his wife. "Speaking of work," he said, releasing her, his tone shifting into something apologetic and smooth, "I have about 40 more minutes on this Jensen acquisition." Chloe sent over a final draft tonight. Jessica felt the familiar, small tension, the one she kept dismissing as irrational. Chloe Hartley had been appearing in conversation for 6 weeks, always framed the same way. Brilliant, hardworking, a little intense, needed guidance. Liam said her name exactly one beat too casually, the way people say the names of things they have rehearsed. "She is brilliant, but she overthinks," he said. "If I do not look at this tonight, she will spiral all weekend." Jessica said 40 minutes, and Liam said 40 minutes, and the office door closed, and she stood in the kitchen listening to the keyboard rhythm from the other room and thought, that does not sound like reviewing a presentation. Then she thought, I am being paranoid. Then she got a glass of water and went to find the remote. And the Penguin documentary remained unwatched, and the keyboard typed on in its frantic, private rhythm. And outside the window, the Connecticut night was dark and full of things she had not yet allowed herself to name. Here is what experience and research and the accumulated wisdom of women who have been exactly where Jessica was standing will tell you. The first warning sign is almost never dramatic. It is not a lipstick collar or a late night call. It is a laugh that belongs to someone else now, a name that appears too casually, too often, explained too smoothly. Your instincts are not irrational. They are data. The most important thing you can do when something feels wrong is resist the deeply human urge to explain it away. Not because you should assume the worst, but because your future self deserves the courtesy of your present honesty. Jessica's sister Sarah had a different policy entirely. Sarah Mitchell arrived the following Wednesday to help pack the hospital bag, a task she approached with the gravity of a military operation and approximately none of the organizational restraint Jessica had applied to the color-coded Ziploc system already in place. She surveyed the bag and immediately began adding items. "Pickles," she announced, placing a jar inside. "Sarah, for after. You will want something salty and aggressive. There is a cafeteria. The cafeteria has Jell-O and institutional optimism. You need pickles." She added a celebrity gossip magazine. "For the waiting parts, I will be in active labor. There are no waiting parts. There are always waiting parts. Labor's 40% waiting, 30% screaming, and 30% wondering why you did not get the epidural sooner." She reached into her bag and produced a small white device. Jessica stared at it. "Whale sounds," Sarah said. "It is a noise machine. I am having a baby, not visiting an aquarium. Birth is cinematic. You need a soundtrack." Jessica looked at her sister, the small, fierce person who had shown up every time it mattered for as long as she could remember, and felt a wave of love, so sudden it surprised her. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Obviously," said Sarah. "Now where is Liam? He should be helping with this." "Home office," Jessica said. "Work call." Sarah's expression did something small and complicated that she smoothed away in under a second. "Right," she said. "Work call." She added the whale machine to the bag and did not say anything else about it. But that night, after she drove home, she opened a spreadsheet on her laptop that she had started 6 weeks earlier. She titled it Liam, a study in red flags. She added a new entry to tab 3, which was called Chloe Hartley frequency of mention. She had been paying attention for months. She was going to keep paying attention, and she was going to be ready. The changes were small. They were the kind of small that only registers in total, the way a house fills with water before you notice the floor is wet. Each individual thing was explainable. In sequence, they told a story Jessica kept refusing to read. Liam's phone had always lived on the kitchen counter, charging overnight, open and accessible, the way the phone of a man with nothing to hide lives. Now it went to bed with him, not beside the bed, on the nightstand, in his hand, screen down, until she was asleep. She noticed this the first time on a Thursday. By the following Thursday, it was simply his new habit, seamlessly established, as if it had always been this way. A receipt appeared in the pocket of his dry cleaning. A restaurant she had never heard of. 2 people. A Tuesday night, he had worked late. She found it when she was hanging up his jacket. She looked at it for several seconds, then she put it back in the pocket. The cologne changed, not obviously. The cedar she had bought him for their anniversary was still underneath, but something sweeter had been added on top, something younger. She mentioned it once, casually, in the kitchen one morning. He said a client had given him a sample. He said it the way people say things they have prepared in advance. The late nights multiplied. The excuses were always logical, always just plausible enough. The Jensen acquisition, a product launch, a team crisis that only he could manage. He was working so hard for their family, he said. He wanted everything in order before paternity leave started. He wanted to be fully present when Lily arrived. He loved her. He said it often, almost metronomically. I love you. Like a man maintaining a system, Jessica noticed all of it. Jessica explained all of it away. Because the alternative was not something she could afford to believe. At 38 weeks pregnant, in a house she had spent 3 years making into a home, with a nursery full of watercolor animals and a name already chosen for the person who would sleep beneath them. She could not afford to be right about this, so she decided she was wrong. Sarah, meanwhile, had built a spreadsheet with 5 tabs. Tab 1 was phone behavior. Tab 2 was arrival times versus stated times. Tab 3 was Chloe Hartley, frequency of mention, which had 17 entries. Tab 4 was receipts and discrepancies. Tab 5 was simply titled Gut Feelings and contained the words, something is wrong. Update, still wrong. Update, extremely wrong. And then, most recently, preparing accordingly. She showed it to Jessica over prenatal yoga on a Saturday morning. Jessica's response was immediate. Sarah, you made a spreadsheet about my husband. I made a thorough spreadsheet about a pattern of behavior that warrants documentation. It has 5 tabs. Organized systems have tabs. That is what tabs are for. Their instructor, a serene woman named Penelope, who had apparently achieved a level of inner peace that allowed her to teach yoga to 2 arguing sisters without losing composure, looked at them from her bolster and said gently, "Ladies, can we bring our energy into the breath?" Sarah brought her energy into the breath for approximately 4 seconds and then quietly refreshed Liam's LinkedIn under her mat. Jessica took the phone from her sister's hand, placed it in Sarah's bag, and spent the rest of class attempting to meditate. She did not succeed. She lay on her mat with her eyes closed and her hands on her belly and her mind moving through the receipts and the phone and the cologne and the name that appeared by 1 beat 2 casually and arriving, every time, at the same uncomfortable place. She left it there. She was not ready to look at it directly yet. 3 nights later, at 2:47 in the morning, she woke to contractions. They were 8 minutes apart, sharp and real. entirely different from the practice runs she had been having for weeks. She woke Liam, who was out of bed and into his jeans before she finished the sentence. He grabbed the color-coded hospital bag, pickles and all, and had her in the car in 6 minutes. On the drive to the hospital, he held her hand across the center console, his thumb making slow circles on her wrist, and she felt something loosen in her chest. At the hospital, they monitored her for 3 hours. Liam sat beside her the entire time. He brought ice chips without being asked. He made terrible impressions of their doctors that she told him to stop and then asked him to do again. He was warm and present and entirely, genuinely there. At 6 in the morning, Dr. Patricia Evans came in and confirmed it. Not yet. False alarm. Baby Lily was comfortable and apparently in no hurry. Go home, rest, eat something, Dr. Evans said. She will let you know when she is ready. In the car on the way home, early morning light coming through the windshield in long gold bars, Liam drove with one hand on the wheel and one hand holding hers. I am so ready to meet her, he said, and he meant it. Jessica could hear that he meant it. The genuine tenderness in his voice at 6 in the morning with tired eyes and bed hair. He was capable of real love. She had heard it right then, unmistakably. She leaned her head back against the seat and let herself believe. I was being paranoid, she thought. This is real. We are real. Me too, she said. She slept the whole way home, her hand in his, the morning gold warming the inside of the car. This is the cruelest thing about the kind of betrayal Jessica was living inside. It rarely presents as entirely one thing. The warmth was real. The tenderness was real. A person can love their family and destroy it simultaneously. That is not a contradiction. It is a tragedy. And the tragedy is not that the love was false. The tragedy is that the love was true and still not enough to make him choose correctly. If you have ever loved someone who made you feel completely safe and completely uncertain at the same time, then you understand this in your body before you understand it in your head. You understand that safety and danger can wear the same face, speak in the same voice, hold your hand in the same way. And the only way through that confusion is to watch what people do when staying would cost them something. That is where the truth lives. Jessica was about to find out exactly what staying would have cost Liam. The answer, it turned out, was everything, and he chose not to pay it. The real labor started on a Friday night, at 39 weeks and 3 days. The house had a particular quality that evening, a held-breath stillness that Jessica would remember later as the last moment of the before. She had spent the afternoon in the nursery, rearranging things that did not need rearranging, refolding the tiny onesies in their lavender-scented drawer, straightening the owl in the mural who was already perfectly straight, standing in the doorway with both hands on her belly, thinking, soon. Liam had been in his home office since 4 in the afternoon. The keyboard rhythm was wrong. She could hear it from the kitchen, fast and uneven, the rhythm of a personal conversation, not a work document. Stop, start, long pause, rapid burst. The pattern of someone choosing words carefully for someone who mattered. She stood in the hallway outside his door for 30 seconds, listening. Then she went back to the kitchen. His phone was on the coffee table. She had not gone looking for it. She had simply walked past on the way to get water, and the screen lit up with a WhatsApp notification, and she saw the preview before she could decide not to look. Chloe H. Thinking of you tonight of all nights. Then a champagne glass emoji. The timestamp, 11:47 at night. Tonight of all nights. Jessica stood very still. Her brain ran 2 tracks simultaneously. The rational track that was building explanations, and the other track, quieter and more honest, that had been waiting 11 months for exactly this moment. Then, a contraction hit her. Not the dull practice ache she knew, something deep and seismic and entirely new, a force that required her full biological attention without negotiation. She breathed through it, timed it, waited. 5 minutes later, another. She called for Liam. He emerged from the office with an expression she had never seen on his face before in their 4 years together. Not panic, not the terrified excitement she had imagined would be on his face on this night. Something closer to interrupted, as if she had pulled him away from something important. The expression lasted perhaps 2 seconds before the mask of devoted husband slid into place, smooth and practiced. "Oh my God, babe, are you sure?" "Pretty sure my body is staging a hostile takeover, yes." He ran a hand through his perfect hair. "Okay. Hospital bag. It is by the door. Your birth plan is in the front pocket. Car keys are on the hook." And then, as if on cue, her water broke on the hardwood floor of the hallway they had refinished together the summer before they got pregnant. They both looked at the floor, the undeniable, irrevocable proof. In the rush to the door, the bag, the keys, his phone, Liam swept his phone off the coffee table and pocketed it without looking at the screen. An automatic motion, practiced and fluid, as natural as breathing. Tonight of all nights. In the car on the dark highway, Jessica looked out the window and said nothing about the message. Nothing about the keyboard rhythm. Nothing about the cologne or the receipt or Sarah's spreadsheet with its 5 increasingly detailed tabs. She looked at the city lights in the distance and felt, with cold precision, the first solid edge of a truth she had been circling for almost a year. Not a suspicion anymore. Not anxiety, dressed up as instinct. Something harder, something with corners. Something is wrong, she thought. Something has been wrong for a long time, and tonight, at the worst possible time, with my daughter on her way into the world, I am going to find out exactly what it is. The hospital appeared ahead, all fluorescent light and institutional purpose. She exhaled. Get through tonight first, she told herself. She did not yet know that tonight was going to be the night the entire structure collapsed. She did not know that in 3 hours, while she was doing the hardest physical work of her life, her husband was going to be in a hotel room 20 minutes away. She did not know that a young woman with her phone was going to document the whole thing on Instagram, geotag, and timestamp included, and distribute it to an audience that included, by extraordinary coincidence, the woman sitting in the passenger seat of this car right now. She only knew that something was wrong. She was right. She walked into the hospital holding Liam's hand, and the automatic doors slid open, and the fluorescent lights were harsh and unforgiving, and somewhere deep inside her body, her daughter was preparing to enter a world that was about to be entirely different from the one her parents had planned. Room 3. B on the labor and delivery ward was beige and relentless and smelled of antiseptic and floor wax and the distant coffee from Nurse Donna's station in the hall. Nurse Donna had been a labor and delivery nurse for 22 years. She was a compact woman with silver-streaked hair and reading glasses she wore on a chain around her neck, and the specific quality of calm that only exists in people who have seen so much that very little surprises them anymore. She moved through the room with quiet efficiency, hooking Jessica to the fetal heart monitor, adjusting the contraction sensors, doing everything with the focus and ease of someone for whom this work is not a job, but a calling. The monitor found Lily's heartbeat immediately, thump, 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 steady and certain, and filling the room like a small drum, insistent and alive. Good, strong heart, Donna said. She knows what she is doing. Sarah had arrived 40 minutes after them, tote bag over one shoulder, thermos of coffee in hand, the whale sound machine tucked under her arm like a small and inexplicable trophy. She had set it up on the windowsill without asking anyone's permission, and it was now playing softly in the corner, and Nurse Donna had looked at it once and said nothing, which was a form of acceptance. Liam was performing the devoted husband with considerable skill. Ice chips, offered without prompting, his hand in Jessica's, through each contraction, thumb making slow circles on her skin. Murmured encouragements between the waves. You are incredible. You are doing amazing. I love you so much. But between contractions, his eyes went to his phone. Not conspicuously, just a glance, then another. His body would angle slightly away from her, shoulders tightening. A small contained expression would cross his face, something private and suppressed. And then he would look back at Jessica, and the mask would reassemble. Is that work? Jessica asked during a lull. Her voice strained. He flinched, just slightly. Yeah. Chloe, she is panicking about the Monday presentation. He slipped the phone face down on the bedside table. You do not need to worry about it. All my focus is right here. He leaned in to kiss her forehead. His eyes, she noticed, did not close. Nurse Donna, adjusting the IV with great concentration, said absolutely nothing, but she began checking in on Jessica more frequently than protocol strictly required. The contractions intensified, 4 minutes apart, then 3. The pain was no longer something Jessica could think around. It was something she had to move through, each wave demanding her complete attention. Sarah was on one side, steady and present, hand over hand, breathing alongside her. Liam was on the other side, warm and attentive, and somewhere else entirely. Then, an hour after they had arrived, with contractions now 5 minutes apart, and Jessica pale and focused, and working harder than she had ever worked in her life, Liam stood up abruptly. Oh no. What? Jessica managed, between breaths. The car seat. He pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes in theatrical dismay. The infant car seat, Jess. I forgot to transfer it. It is in my car at the house. They will not discharge you without it. Nurse Donna looked up from the monitor she was adjusting. She is progressing quickly, Mr. Calloway. You do not want to be gone long. I will be 20 minutes, 30 absolute tops. He was already moving toward the door, his body carrying him with the momentum of someone who had made this decision before the words finished coming out of his mouth. I will break every speed limit in Connecticut. He squeezed Jessica's hand, kissed her temple. I love you. You are extraordinary. I will be back before you know it. The door swung shut behind him. The room was quiet for a moment. Nurse Donna watched the door. Then she turned back to the monitor. After a long pause, without looking up, she said, "Third one this month, who forgot the car seat." She made a small adjustment to the IV. Funny how they always remember everything else. The room held the weight of that sentence. Sarah looked at the door Liam had walked through. Then she opened Instagram. She was not looking for anything in particular. She was doing what people do when they are anxious and need somewhere to put their eyes, scrolling past vacation photos and food pictures and the dog that looked like a disgruntled senator. And then her thumb stopped. The contraction that hit Jessica at 1:08 in the morning was the worst one yet. A wave that started in her lower back and crested through her entire body, demanding everything, leaving nothing in reserve. She reached for Liam's hand. She found only the cool plastic of the bed rail. She gripped it anyway. The fetal monitor beeped steadily. Lily's heartbeat, unwavering and certain. Sarah set her phone face down on the chair and came to the bedside, both hands closing over Jessica's. I am here, Sarah said. I am right here. Breathe with me. Jessica breathed. The contraction passed. She lay back against the pillow with sweat on her forehead and the exhaustion of a body doing the hardest work it will ever do, and she looked at the empty chair where Liam had been sitting, and she looked at the door, and she looked at the distant glow of the city through the window. He was out there somewhere, in all that light, and she was here. A sound escaped her that was smaller than crying, more private. The sound of a woman who has been beholding a hope in both hands for a very long time and has just felt it begin to give way. "Hey," Sarah said softly, "come back to me." Jessica looked at her sister. "You do not need him to do this," Sarah said. "You never did. This is the truth that gets buried under everything else when a relationship is unraveling. You often do not need what you think you need. You have been doing the work all along, carrying more than your share, building more than was visible." What Liam's absence revealed was not a deficit in Jessica. It was a clarity. She had the strength. She had always had it. She just had not yet had to use it alone. She would find out tonight exactly how much of it she had. It turned out to be more than enough. Liam Calloway did not drive home. He knew the exit. He passed it at 65 miles an hour without touching the brake. The quiet suburban street with its maple trees disappearing in the rearview mirror. His wife in a hospital bed 3 miles behind him. His daughter hours from arriving in a world he was about to make significantly more complicated. The Grand Meridian rose ahead, all glass and steel and the particular arrogance of buildings that cost too much to apologize for it. He pulled into valet parking. He sent a text. "I'm here, room 1208. He had booked the room 10 days ago under a false name, paid with a credit card his wife did not know existed. He had told himself it was a pressure valve, a final breath before the rest of his life sealed around him. He had been constructing this story for 6 months, adding detail and justification as needed, and he was very skilled at not looking at the construction directly. The room was obscenely beautiful. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a panoramic view of the city as laid out below, like something magnificent and indifferent. A bed that cost more per night than most people's weekly grocery budget. Chloe Hartley was standing at the window, silhouetted against the city lights, wearing a black dress that had been chosen with great care to look as though it had not been. She was 24 years old and luminous in the way of people who have not yet been asked to pay for anything. "I was starting to think you were not coming," she said. "My wife just went into labor," he said. The words spoken aloud in this room tasted like ash. Chloe's expression shifted. A flicker of something submerged quickly. "Oh my God, should you be there?" I told her I was getting the car seat. He heard himself say this, in this room, with the city spread out beneath them and his daughter's heartbeat on a monitor 20 minutes away. The man who had meant every word on that early morning drive home from the false alarm, the man who had genuinely wanted to be the person this life required of him, that man was standing in this room, and Liam could not locate him. "We better make it count then," Chloe said, phone already in her hand. "But first, don't. Not with me in it. Oh, come on, look at this view. The lighting is incredible." "Chloe." She was already pressing her cheek to his, angling the phone upward, puckering her lips. "You look so serious. Look powerful, not guilty." He reached for the phone. She laughed and pulled back. The shutter sound. Once, twice, 3 times. She tapped her screen, typing rapidly. "What are you doing?" "Just posting to my story. My friends are going to love this hotel." "Chloe, do not post anything with me in it," she pouted. "We look good. Do not be boring." She typed a caption. "Stolen moments with my favorite person." She added the location tag, the Grand Meridian Hotel. She hit share before he could reach the phone. A notification chimed almost immediately. "Casey already loves it," she said, pleased. Liam stood very still. The image, the caption, the geotag, his face visible, his watch the one Jessica had engraved on their third anniversary, clearly legible on his wrist. A digital confession, publicly filed and distributed to an audience whose size he did not know and should have thought to ask about months ago. He grabbed his keys. Back in room 3B, Sarah Mitchell was scrolling Instagram with one hand and holding her coffee thermos with the other. She was not looking for anything. She was keeping her eyes busy because the alternative was watching her sister grip a bed rail alone. And that image was more than she could hold without doing something she would regret. Celebrity gossip, a friend's vacation, the senator dog, a recipe she would never make. Her thumb stopped. The photo was unmistakable. There was Liam, her brother-in-law, who was supposedly retrieving a car seat from a house 20 minutes away, his arm around a young woman with long blonde hair, her cheek pressed to his, her lips in a practiced pout. Behind them, floor-to-ceiling windows and a city view that Sarah recognized from a wedding she had worked 2 years ago. The Grand Meridian Hotel. The caption, "Stolen moments with my favorite person." The timestamp, 12 minutes ago. Sarah stared at the screen. 1 second. 2, 3, 4, 5. Her brain moved through denial, recognition, confirmation, denial again, and arrived at a destination that felt like cold water poured directly into her chest. She took a screenshot. Her hands were shaking so badly she took 3. She looked up. Jessica had her eyes closed, face pale with concentration, moving through the beginning of another contraction. I cannot tell her, Sarah thought. Not now. Not in the middle of this. It could hurt the baby. It could break her when she needs to be intact. She pressed the rage down. All of it, everything volcanic and white hot, she compressed into the smallest space she could find inside herself and locked it there. She walked to the bedside. I am here, she said. Her voice did not shake. She was proud of this in a way she would never be able to fully explain to anyone who had not been in that room. She held her sister's hand. She breathed with her. The contraction passed. And somewhere across the city, in a hotel room on the 22nd floor, Liam Calloway was already on his way back to a hospital where the damage had been done and the evidence was circulating, and the fire he had lit in a room full of gasoline was already irreversibly burning. At 12:19 in the morning, Dr. Patricia Evans arrived, assessed the situation, and said, "We are at 10 centimeters, Jessica. It is time to push." What followed was not the soft-lit, graceful event that movies suggest. It was primal and loud and completely unglamorous, and it was the most extraordinary thing Nurse Donna had witnessed in 22 years of witnessing extraordinary things. Jessica Calloway, who had spent 9 months color-coding Ziploc bags and researching hypoallergenic detergent and painting woodland animals on a nursery wall, discovered in that room that somewhere beneath all the planning lived a woman of ferocious and unglamorous and magnificent power. She pushed with everything she had. She roared. She demanded ice chips with the authority of someone who has earned them. Between the third and fourth round of pushing, Nurse Donna leaned close and said, with the directness of a woman who has learned through experience what actually helps, "Honey, I have seen a lot of men make a lot of dumb decisions in this room in 22 years, but you are doing the hardest thing a human body can do. So, let us show him what he is missing." Jessica laughed. It was completely inappropriate and completely necessary. It cracked something loose in her chest, not grief, but something that burned cleaner. Resolve. She looked at Sarah, who was holding both her hands and crying openly in the unself-conscious way of someone who has given up on composure entirely and she thought, this is who is here. This is who showed up. On the next one, Dr. Evans said, everything you have. Jessica gave everything she had, and at 12:41 in the morning, a new sound entered the world, small, furious, absolute. Lily Claire Calloway announced her existence with the voice of someone who had the opinions about it from the first breath. They placed her on Jessica's chest, warm and vernix covered and astonishing. A small face scrunched against the shock of air and light, dark hair pressed flat against a perfect skull. Fists clenched like she was already prepared to fight for something. Jessica looked down at her daughter. The room disappeared. The monitors disappeared, the beige walls and the fluorescent lights and the distant sound of the corridor, all of it simply gone. There was only this weight, this warmth, this small breathing creature who had been a heartbeat on a monitor and was now impossibly a person. "Hi," Jessica whispered. Her voice had nothing left in it, completely wrung out, completely bare, completely honest. "Hi, I have been waiting for you." Sarah was taking photographs with one hand and failing entirely to wipe her face with the other, tears running freely, and she said, "She is perfect. She is the most perfect person I have ever seen," and she was. They cleaned Lily and swaddled her in a pink and white striped blanket, and Jessica was counting her fingers for the third time when the door to room 3B swung open. Liam walked in. He was carrying the infant car seat like a man carrying a prop he had rehearsed with on the drive over. His expression was calibrated, relieved but guilty, excited but apologetic. The performance of a man who had constructed a story and told it to himself until it felt almost true. "I am so sorry," he began, his voice filling the room. "There was an accident on the 95. Complete gridlock. My phone died. I tried everything." He stopped. The room's atmosphere reached him, the silence of three women who know something. Nurse Donna, busy at the counter, not looking at him. Dr. Evans quietly completing paperwork in the corner. Sarah, standing beside the bed, expression offering nothing. His eyes found the swaddled bundle in Jessica's arms. Something genuine crossed his face then, underneath the performance. Wonder, or the ghost of it. The reflex of a man who, in a different version of his life, would have been standing here for the right reasons. "Oh my God." He took a step forward. "Let me see her, Jess." "You can see her from there," Jessica said. Her voice was very quiet. The quietest thing in the room. The kind of quiet that is more frightening than shouting. Liam stopped. "What is wrong?" He looked at Sarah, reaching for an ally, and found only an expression that offered him nothing. Sarah held up her phone. The Instagram post filled the screen. The hotel window, the city lights, his face, his watch, the caption, "Stolen moments with my favorite person." The geotag, the Grand Meridian Hotel, the timestamp, 12:14 in the morning. She held it steady. She said nothing. Liam's face did something that could not be undone. The car seat dropped from his hands and hit the linoleum floor with a hollow, definitive sound. "Jess, no," he started. "It is not what it looks like." "How was the hotel?" Jessica said. The quiet in her voice was absolute. "How was the hotel, Liam?" "It was a mistake," Liam said. "One stupid, meaningless mistake. I was stressed. The pressure of everything. The baby. Work. I was not thinking clearly." "You were thinking clearly enough to book the room 10 days ago," Sarah said. "This is between my wife and me. It stopped being between you and your wife when you geotagged it." "Jessica." He moved toward the bed, and his voice shifted into something more urgent, stripped of the performance. "Please, let me explain. Let me hold her. She is my daughter. You cannot—" "I want you to leave," Jessica said. I am not leaving. This is my family. Mr. Calloway. Nurse Donna appeared in the doorway with the particular authority of a woman who has managed more difficult situations than this one and has never once raised her voice to do it. You need to step out. I am not going anywhere. She just gave birth. She is not thinking clearly. You cannot take her decisions right now as... He stopped himself. Too late. The room went entirely still. Jessica looked at him with an expression that could have etched glass. She is not stable, he said, quieter now, looking at Donna, at the door, calculating. She is emotional and in shock. I am her husband, and I have a right to... Security arrived in 4 minutes. 2 men in the doorway, patient and unmovable. Liam was escorted out of room 3B at 1:23 in the morning, while his daughter slept in her mother's arms. Swaddled in pink and white, completely undisturbed. His words remained in the room after the door clicked shut. She is not stable. They floated there in the antiseptic air. He's going to use that, Jessica said quietly. He will not get the chance, said Sarah. But they both knew, in the way that women who love each other know things before they are said, that the night was not the hardest part. The hardest part was organizing itself quietly in the background, in offices with expensive furniture and men who charged by the hour, and it was coming. Jessica came home to the Craftsman house on a Tuesday, 3 days postpartum, sore and moving carefully, Lily in the car seat in the back. Her mother had filled the fridge with soup and lasagna in neat labeled containers. Her father had spent the previous afternoon changing every lock, the scrape and click of new tumblers, moving through the house like punctuation. He did it without being asked and without comment, and Jessica had stood in the hallway listening and felt something she could not name, but that she needed. The legal notice arrived on day 5. Certified mail, a return address from the offices of Whitmore, Aldrich, and Cole. Liam, acting on advice of counsel, had filed a petition for emergency shared custody of Lily Claire Calloway. The petition used the word unstable twice. Jessica read it at the kitchen table while Lily slept in the bassinet 6 feet away. She read it twice. Then she placed it face down on the table, very precisely, and looked at the wall for 30 seconds. Then she picked up her daughter and sat down on the kitchen floor. She looked at the legal language with its careful, bloodless phrasing and understood what it meant in practice. Every joint account had Liam's name on it. She had stopped freelancing at 30 weeks. She had no independent income, and she could see now, looking back at the bank app, that money had been moving for 2 months. Subtle transfers to accounts she could not access. Not dramatic, just consistent, premeditated. He had been planning this. Not the affair. He had not planned to be discovered at the affair. But this, the financial positioning, the legal preemption, the framing of her as unstable before she could frame him as absent, this had been arranged by people with more resources and more time than she had, and who were not sitting on a kitchen floor in a relocked house with a newborn and a dish towel for a handkerchief. At 3:14 in the morning, her phone rang. Sarah. I am outside, Sarah said. I have coffee. I have the spreadsheet, which now has 8 tabs. And I have the business card of a woman named Catherine Brooks, who is apparently the most feared divorce attorney in the state of Connecticut. Let me in. Jessica got up off the floor. She unlocked the new lock. She let her sister in. Sarah sat down at the kitchen table and opened her laptop with the gravity of someone entering a war room. Tab 6 was titled Legal Strategy, Preliminary. Tab 7 was Financial Documentation. Tab 8 was simply Catherine Brooks, Background Research, and contained 3 newspaper articles, 2 court records, and a wedding announcement annotated in Sarah's handwriting, she divorced him too. Good instincts. Sarah? Jessica said. When did you build all of this? February, Sarah said simply. I told you something was wrong. You had a tab called Gut Feelings. Gut feelings are data. She slid the business card across the table. Call her first thing in the morning. Jessica picked up the card. Then she looked at her sister. I am really glad you are insufferable, she said. I know, said Sarah. It is one of my best qualities. Then Liam's legal team did something that crossed the line from adversarial to cruel. Through discovery, they subpoenaed Jessica's medical records. At her 6-week OB appointment, she had mentioned postpartum anxiety, the standard and deeply common experience of a new mother whose life had collapsed around her. Dr. Evans had noted it with appropriate clinical care, completely routine. Liam's attorneys intended to present it as evidence of mental instability. Additionally, Margaret Calloway, Liam's mother, provided a written statement to the mediator describing Jessica as emotionally volatile, erratic, and overly reliant on her sister to the exclusion of appropriate spousal partnership. She wrote that, Jessica said flatly, reading the statement. She did, Catherine confirmed. Her son was in a hotel room when her grandchild was born, yes. And she wrote that I am the problem. That is what the statement says. A long pause. What do we do? Jessica said. We win, Catherine said simply. This is going to feel very bad before it feels better, but we are going to win. Here's what nobody tells you about the hardest seasons. You do not get through them by being strong every day. You get through them by knowing where to look when you are not strong, by having the number of someone who has seen this before and knows exactly what to do. Document everything. Do not move any money without legal guidance. Keep records of every communication. Get your name on every document you're entitled to. Knowledge is the one resource in a legal dispute that cannot be frozen, transferred, or used against you. Jessica had Catherine. Catherine was formidable, and they were going to win. But first, everything was going to get worse. Catherine Brooks was a machine. She filed a counter-motion within 72 hours that was, by the measured standards of family law, a controlled demolition. She submitted the Instagram post with its timestamp, geotag, and Liam's engraved watch visible in the frame, cross-referenced against the hospital's documented labor timeline. She submitted the financial transfer records as evidence of premeditated asset concealment. She submitted a formal request for Liam's work email records through discovery, a request his legal team opposed vigorously, which Catherine noted in a subsequent filing with the phrase, "Opposition to discovery at this stage suggests consciousness of guilt." The preliminary custody hearing was set for a Tuesday morning in November. Jessica wore her good coat and her grandmother's pearl earrings, the ones she had worn every time she needed to feel like herself since she was 22, and she sat beside Catherine Brooks in a courtroom that smelled of old wood and radiator heat. The judge reviewed the petition, reviewed the counter-motion, reviewed the Instagram post, the timestamp, the geotag, and the medically documented labor timeline. The judge denied the emergency custody petition, without sufficient merit, she said, and with some concern about the circumstances under which it was filed. She looked at Gerald Whitmore as she said this, Gerald Whitmore, whose silver tie and $400 hourly rate had not managed to obscure what the evidence made plain, absorbed this look with the expression of a man recalculating. In the courthouse hallway, Sarah did a small contained fist pump that she believed no one saw. Nurse Donna sent a text that read, "Good. He deserved worse. More soon." That night, Jessica made Lily's last bottle of the evening with something approaching peace. The kitchen was quiet in the right way. The new locks felt like hers. She was thinking about painting the living room terracotta. She had always wanted terracotta. Liam had wanted gray. Maybe the worst is over, she thought. She put Lily down. Lily went down without protest, which she was only beginning to do, and it felt like a small miracle. Jessica made tea and sat at the kitchen table and let herself be still and okay. Maybe it is actually going to be all right. Her phone rang at 9:07. Catherine Brooks. Her voice was different, the careful voice of someone delivering information that requires a particular kind of preparation. Jessica, the work email discovery came back. I need you to sit down. Jessica sat down. Liam's work emails do not only document the relationship with Chloe Hartley, Catherine said. There is a prior relationship, a woman named Rebecca Torrance. She was a project coordinator at his company 2 years ago. 6 months. It ended when she became pregnant. The kitchen was very quiet. He paid for her silence. His parents facilitated the payment. The amount? The NDA. Bill? The account it was paid from. All of it is in the emails. Jessica's hand tightened on the phone. That is not all, Catherine said. There was a pause. There is a third name. It is someone you know. Who? Amanda Fletcher. The name arrived in the kitchen like something physical. Amanda Fletcher, who had been Jessica's closest friend since the first week of college, her maid of honor, who had held Lily in this house last week with tears in her eyes that Jessica had assumed were joy. One instance, Catherine said, 8 months ago. According to the emails, she told him it was a mistake and ended all contact. She apparently intended to tell you. Then you announced the pregnancy, and she could not find the words, Jessica said. That is the indication, yes. Jessica sat at her kitchen table in her relocked house with her daughter, asleep down the hall, and her tea getting cold in front of her. She had been in this kitchen. Amanda had been in this kitchen, had sat in the chair across from this one, had held Lily, had cried tears Jessica had read as happiness. She put the phone down on the table. She looked at the wall. Lily made a small sound in her sleep down the hall, not distress, just the sounds a new person makes while learning how to exist, and then went quiet again. Jessica sat on the kitchen floor. She had not planned it. Her body simply made the decision, folding down until she was on the tile, with her back against the cabinet, in the position that humans have assumed since the beginning of time when something becomes too large to hold upright. This was not the rage of the hospital room. This was not the cold terror of the legal notice. This was grief, clean and old and irreplaceable, for a friendship that had been the constant of her adult life, for 15 years of Sunday mornings and borrowed dresses, and the shorthand that only forms between people who have been through enough together. She cried without grace or management or performance. The kind of crying that does not look like crying in movies. Thorough and unglamorous and necessary. She cried for Liam and for what they had been, and for the house and the nursery and the plans. She cried for Rebecca Torrance, who had been through this alone before her. She cried for Amanda, for the version of that friendship she would never have back. She cried until there was nothing left. Then she wiped her face on the dish towel. She got up off the floor. She picked up the phone and called Catherine back. Add it to the file, she said. All of it. Are you sure you want to? All of it. I want all of it on the record. There is a difference between the grief that defeats you and the grief that refines you, and the difference is not in its intensity. It is in what you do when you get up off the floor. Jessica got up. She called her lawyer. She said all of it, put all of it on the record, and then she put Lily back in the bassinet, and she did not sleep, but she lay in the dark, and she breathed, and she let herself be furious and broken and clear all at the same time. That is what surviving looks like. Not strength, not composure, getting up off the floor and making the call. The divorce proceedings began in January in a courtroom with bare-limbed trees visible through tall windows and the smell of old wood and institutional radiator heat. Catherine was methodical and precise and quietly devastating in the way of someone who has been doing this for 30 years and has never once confused mercy with weakness. She submitted the Instagram post, timestamp and geotag, an engraved watch included, cross-referenced against the hospital labor timeline with millimeter accuracy. She submitted the financial transfer records and the work emails. She submitted Rebecca Torrance's signed statement, which Rebecca had driven 3 hours to deliver in person in a manila envelope without being asked. Upon learning that Liam's legal team intended to use Jessica's postpartum anxiety notation against her, Rebecca had said to Catherine, "I wish I had done this sooner. Whatever she needs." Catherine submitted the records of Margaret Calloway's facilitation of the Rebecca Torrance payment, made through accounts connected to the Calloway Family Trust, documented in emails Margaret had sent from her personal account because she had not anticipated discovery. Gerald Whitmore, in his silver tie, attempted several things. He attempted to argue that the Instagram post had been taken out of context. Nurse Donna, called as a character witness, turned to look at Gerald Whitmore with the measured patience of a woman who has cataloged 30 years of human behavior in its most unguarded moments, and said, "Honey, a geotag does not have context. It has coordinates." The courtroom did not laugh. Several people in the courtroom wanted to. He attempted to introduce Jessica's postpartum anxiety notation from her medical file. The judge reviewed it, reviewed Dr. Evans' complete clinical notes, reviewed the standard literature on postpartum anxiety prevalence that Catherine had preemptively submitted, and set the whole thing aside with an expression that communicated an entire opinion without requiring a single word. Gerald Whitmore accepted this without speaking. He attempted to argue that Liam's absence from the birth was circumstantial. Catherine submitted the hotel check-in record, the false name, cross-referenced against the credit card his wife had not known existed, the room booked 10 days in advance. During a recess, Tom Calloway appeared in a conference room with his attorney and a number written on a piece of paper that he slid across the table, with the practiced ease of a man for whom this was not the first time. In exchange for a non-disclosure agreement and a revised custody arrangement, his attorney said, a more generous arrangement for both parties. Catherine looked at the number. Then she looked at Tom Calloway. "Mr. Calloway," she said, "when a party offers a settlement of this size at this stage of proceedings, they are telling us exactly how much evidence they know we have." She slid the paper back across the table. "We have enough." She stood up. "We will see you back inside." The judge's ruling was issued on a Thursday afternoon in February. Jessica received the house. Full physical custody of Lily Claire Calloway. Child support calculated accurately against Liam's income. A legal cost award that the judgment described in the measured language of official documents as significant. Liam received supervised visitation, 2 hours every other weekend, at a neutral family services facility with a third-party supervisor present. He also received Gerald Whitmore's bill for $47,000 and the news that his company had quietly rescinded the promotion that had been the stated source of all that pressure. Jessica signed the final paperwork in Catherine's office on a Wednesday morning with Lily asleep in a carrier on her chest. 8 pounds 2 ounces of absolute indifference to the legal dissolution of the circumstances of her creation. Catherine said, "It is done." Jessica looked at her signature on the page. Jessica Calloway. She was keeping the name. It was Lily's name. It was hers. She had earned it. "Thank you," she said to Catherine. "Do not thank me," Catherine said. "He did all the work. Then she said, "Go home. Paint something." Jessica drove home through the February gray with her daughter asleep on her chest and thought about terracotta. When someone tries to buy your silence, they are telling you exactly how afraid they are of your evidence. A settlement offer is not generosity. It is a price tag on someone's fear. You are not required to accept it. Sometimes what matters most is not the money, but the record. An official document in a file that cannot be edited, a judgment that states clearly what happened and what it cost. Jessica had that now. It was on record. It was done. She pulled into the driveway of the Craftsman house. The new locks, the relocked life. She carried her daughter inside and put her down and stood in the kitchen in the February afternoon light and thought, "It is done." Then she went online and ordered 2 gallons of terracotta paint. She painted the living room on the last weekend of September. 2 coats, one Saturday, with Sarah helping and managing to get a significant quantity of terracotta on the ceiling in one specific area that they agreed by mutual compact never to discuss again. The color was warm and deep and unapologetically itself, the color of afternoon light through old tiles, of something she had wanted for 2 years and had been talked out of, and was now, finally, doing exactly the way she wanted. It was extraordinary. Lily was 6 months old and had become a person of exceptional character. She had opinions about her whale sound machine, firmly in favor, and about her stroller canopy, firmly opposed, and about the specific pitch of Aunt Sarah's laugh, which she found deeply funny and responded to every time with the delighted expression of someone encountering a private joke they were let in on. She had recently discovered her own hands and regarded them with the focused astonishment of a scientist who has made a breakthrough and is not yet entirely sure what to do with the implications. She weighed 14 pounds 4 ounces and was, in her mother's documented and frankly unrepentant opinion, the most interesting person she had ever met. In late September, Jessica called Amanda. They met in the parking lot of the coffee shop where they had met every Sunday morning for 8 years. Not inside, just the parking lot. Because inside was not something Jessica was ready for yet, and she was done doing things before she was ready. Amanda said everything right. She said, "I was a coward. I should have told you immediately, the moment it happened, not protected my own comfort at the expense of your right to know. I chose wrong, and I have to live with that." She did not offer excuses. She did not ask for forgiveness on any timeline. She stood in the parking lot in the October cold and said what she had to say, and then waited. Jessica looked at her. 15 years, Sunday mornings and college apartments and borrowed dresses and the shorthand that only forms between people who have been through enough together. She looked at all of it and at the person standing in front of her who had been part of all of it and had also done something that could not be undone. "I am not ready," Jessica said. "I do not know if I will get there, but I am not going to carry it anymore. It is too heavy, and I need my hands for other things." She got in her car. She drove home. Forgiveness, she was learning, was not a door you walked through all at once. It was a direction you turned, incrementally, on mornings when you had the capacity to turn it. Some mornings she could. Some mornings she could not. Both were allowed. Chloe Hartley sent a text in late October. "I testified in the Rebecca Torrance matter. I hope it helped." Jessica stared at it for a long moment. Then she typed back 2 words. It did. She put her phone down and did not think about Chloe Hartley again. The first supervised visit was on a Saturday morning at a family services facility in a low building off the highway with a parking lot and an American flag and a lobby that smelled of industrial carpet cleaner. Jessica drove Lily there, signed the paperwork, handed her daughter to the facility coordinator, and went to the observation room. Through the one-way glass, she watched Liam sit cross-legged on a soft mat with Lily in front of him, trying to make her smile. He was wearing a sweater she had never seen. Something bought, after, in his new apartment, in the new version of himself she did not know. Lily regarded him with the serene, majestic indifference of a person who does not know him yet. She was interested in a wooden ring on the mat. She was interested in the light from the window. She was interested in her own hands, still a source of ongoing investigation. She was not yet interested in this man who was her father, who was a stranger who would have to become someone she chose rather than someone she was simply given. He looked up at the mirror at one point, sensing something, not knowing she was there. His face was tired, diminished in a way that had nothing to do with age, the subsidence of a man who has lost the story he was telling himself about himself and has not found another one. Jessica watched for 4 minutes. Then she went to the lobby vending machine and got a coffee. She had better things to do with her time. Now it is a late afternoon in October, and the Craftsman house is hers in every way that matters. The maple trees have gone spectacular. The neighbor's yard, a riot of orange and gold. The sky, the impossible blue that only happens in October in New England. The kind of blue that seems too deliberate to be accidental. Jessica is cross-legged on a thick blanket in the backyard, laptop open, working on a freelance design project. A nursery in Westport, soft greens and watercolor animals, which come easily now, which feel like something she knows how to do with her eyes closed. The work is good. It feels good to make things. Lily is on the blanket beside her. She is on her tummy, completely absorbed in the serious project of trying to reach a maple leaf that has fallen just beyond the edge of the blanket. She extends her arm. The leaf does not come. She reconsiders her strategy. She extends her arm again. She has been working on this for 4 minutes and has not wavered in her commitment to the objective. From inside the house, the whale sound machine, which Lily requires for naps and which has therefore become a fixture of the household's ambient soundscape. From the side yard, the unmistakable sounds of Sarah attempting to assemble a small fire pit she purchased on impulse from a hardware store the previous weekend. A metallic clang, a pause, a different metallic clang, suggesting a different mistake. "I am fine," Sarah calls, preemptively. "I did not say anything," Jessica calls back. "I could hear you thinking it." Jessica smiles. She picks up her phone and opens the camera and takes a picture of Lily in the October light. Her face illuminated by afternoon gold, her expression one of pure, uncomplicated joy at the existence of a single fallen leaf. She opens Instagram. She types a caption. "Having a perfect moment with my favorite person." She posts it. She puts the phone down in the grass. She looks up at the October sky. The blue that is too blue, the light that is too gold, the maple leaves falling in no particular hurry. From the side yard comes an impressive crash, followed by a silence that lasts several seconds too long. "Still fine," Sarah announces. "Okay," says Jessica. Lily finally gets the leaf. She holds it up and looks at it with absolute triumph, the face of a person who has worked for something and received it, who is 6 months old and already learning that things which seem beyond reach sometimes need only a different approach and a little more time. Jessica laughs, a real laugh, one that reaches her eyes, that surprises her slightly, the way real laughter does after a long time without it, like finding something you had set down and could not locate and had almost stopped expecting to find. The road ahead is still unknown. There will be harder days. Days when the grief comes back uninvited. Days when the drop-offs are difficult. Days when she wakes at 3 in the morning and has to remember again that the empty space beside her is better than what was there before. She knows all of this. She is not pretending otherwise. But today is not that day. Today is a blanket in a backyard in October. A daughter learning what a leaf is. A sister assembling outdoor furniture with approximately none of the required skills. Whale sounds from the house, terracotta walls inside, new locks on every door. Today she is okay. Today is enough. Today is, in the plainest and most irreducible sense, hers. Jessica Calloway did not get the life she planned. She built something better. Not quickly. Not without the kitchen floor at 3 in the morning. Not without grief that arrived in waves she had not predicted and did not deserve. She built it through all of that, and on the other side, there is October afternoon light, and a daughter reaching for a leaf and a laugh that surprised her. The question she wants to leave you with is not what you would have done. None of us know what we would do until we are in it. Until the bed rail is cold under our hand, and the chair beside us is empty, and the monitor is the only steady sound in the room. The question is, who is your Sarah? Who in your life is building the spreadsheet? Who arrives at 3 in the morning with coffee and a business card and a fire pit? They will absolutely assemble incorrectly. Hold on to that person. That person is the real thing. Tell us in the comments. We read every one. If this story stayed with you, if it made you feel seen or angry or less alone or quietly hopeful, that starting over is not the end of anything but the beginning of something that cannot yet be named, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe. We will be here, and so will you. Editorial closing statement. The content in this video was carefully researched, constructed, and manually edited by our team with a single purpose: to bring you stories that carry genuine meaning, real emotional truth, and lessons worth carrying forward. Every word was chosen to respect both the weight of the subject and the intelligence of our audience. We do not believe in content that exists only to be consumed. We believe in stories that stay with you. Thank you for watching, and thank you for trusting us with your time.